What really caused the start of the war in Tigray? According to those who support Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, it was the treasonous attack on the Northern Command by the forces loyal to the Tigrayan regional government. And if you want to take the most literal sense of the word begin or start, then yeah, that was technically the beginning of armed conflict. But there is plenty of evidence that's now come to light that shows that the federal government and its allies were preparing to attack Tigray, and that the attack on the Northern Command actually was a preemptive strike. Apparently, they weren't lying. The boy who cried wolf actually saw a wolf in the end. And so let's take a look at some of this evidence. Twitter user Mallas Hailom actually created a Twitter thread with all these videos that I'll link to below. But first, on May 7th, in a televised statement, Abiy Ahmed declared that the federal government would be, quote, forced to take decisive action, unquote, if the Tigray region held its own election.
የጨረባ ምርጫ ለማድረግ መነሳት ሀገርንና ሕዝብን ለከፋ አደጋ የሚዳርግ በመሆኑ መንግስት ሀገርንና የሕዝብን ደህንነት ለመጠበቅ ሲል ወሳኝ እርምጃ ለመውሰድ ይገደዳል። ፖለቲከኞች ስልጣን እንዲይዙ ወጣቶች ማለቅ፣ እናቶች ማልቀስ፣ ቤቶች መፍረስ፣ ሕዝቦች መፈናቀል የለባቸው።
Mothers shouldn't cry, houses shouldn't be demolished, and people shouldn't be displaced. That seems to be a very clear threat of war. He didn't say war, but he's a politician, you know? They dance around with their words. And so this is obviously an indication that the federal government had the idea in its head at the very least that it might militarily intervene in Tigray because they had the audacity to hold an election. The federal government, Abiy Ahmed, decided they didn't have any interest in holding an election. They decided to delay it indefinitely. The exact phrasage, I believe, is 9 months after the end of the pandemic. Well, I have no idea when the pandemic is going to end, and nobody seems to. If anything, the situation in Ethiopia with COVID is worse right now than it was when they originally delayed the elections. And so I think we can all throw that out as a fake excuse to simply buy more time for him and his administration to shore up power and shore up its authority over the country. And they don't seem to be interested in doing that with democratic elections. But that is just the first video. Here is a clip of a officer who served at the Northern Command who admits that they were ordered to be on standby 4 to 5 days before the war began.
እኛ ከምን ጊዜውም በተለየ ስታንድ ባይ እንድንሆን አዛዣችን ትዕዛዝ ሰጥተውናል። ቀደም ብሎ 4-5 ቀን በፊት በዛ መልክ በሁሉም ቦታ ተዘጋጅተን ነበረው።
If the war didn't start until the attack on Northern Command on November 4th, what were these people doing preparing on standby for 4 to 5 days earlier? What would they be preparing for? It seems quite clear, just from these 2 videos alone, that a federal intervention was going to happen. They were going to send the military into Tigray to attack and, I guess, attempt to overthrow the regional government. And so any suggestion that the attack on the Northern Command was a surprise or was some huge, horrific act of betrayal that came out of nowhere, it's all rhetoric. It's all narrative meant to demonize Tigrayans. That's what it is. It's meant to stir up hate. It's the same reason why they blamed the attack on the Amharas in Wallagga like 2 days before the war started. It's the same reason why they blamed it on TPLF, to stir up hate, to stir up demonization, to add to their narrative that these people are traitors and therefore it is okay for us to genocide them. That is what is intended with that narrative. And so we need to combat it because they clearly were going to start a war against Tigray. That's obvious now, and we need to let the entire world know that they are lying, that they are using the Northern Command preemptive strike as justification to engage in a genocide when they were already planning this genocide beforehand. And we need to combat that. But I have one more clip for you. It is another high-ranking military official basically admitting that in the Northern Command base in Western Tigray, that there were preparations being made for an invasion.
ያኔ በ24 እኔ ባከር ውዬ ነው የመጣሁት። ወደ ታንኮቻችን ዝግጁ እንዲሆኑ አድርገናል። ጥይት እንዲጭኑ አድርገናል። በየሻለቃው ቦታ ቦታ እንዲይዙ አድርገናል። ለኛ የኛ ለምንላቸው ሰዎችም ነግረናቸዋል። ሁኔታ ከተፈጠረ ምን ማድረግ እንዳለበት ጥሩ ትስስር ፈጥረን ነበር እና እዛው ውዬ ነው የመጣሁት። ያኔ ያዘጋጅን ያው ቀድመናቸዋል። ኦሬዲ ስለ ሁኔታው ስለገባን ደስም ስላላለ ሁሉም ሰው ሬዲ እንዲሆን ነው ያደረግነው።
At the end there, he says something important. ሁኔታውን ስለገባን. Because we understood the situation, we were getting ready. What situation is he referring to there? The complete deterioration and complete absence of trust between the federal government and the regional government, and the impending sort of sense of war that was coming, largely on the federal side because of the troop movements in which they deployed federal forces, or they redeployed federal forces from all over the country, as well as even from the AMISOM mission in Somalia and from UN peacekeeping missions, recalled them, arrested all the Tigrayan soldiers that were in those units, and then sent the rest of them to the border with Tigray. They were ready. They understood the situation. They understood that the climate was one of war. And so this idea that it was some surprise attack on the Northern Command on November 4th is a lie. A complete lie. War was coming. War was inevitable. Quite frankly, war started when they blocked the road to Tigray 2 years ago. Almost 3 years ago. When Abiy Ahmed came to power, they blocked the road leading from Tigray through Amhara region. That is the beginning of economic warfare. They were under siege from that point forward. There were troop buildups by the Eritrean army on the northern border leading up to the conflict that broke out on November 4th. There is evidence that shows that, in fact, there were Eritrean troops present inside of Tigray already before the attack on the Northern Command. A report from the Europe External Program in Africa demonstrates that. And so it is abundantly clear that the Tigrayan government was actually acting in self-defense. That is not a vindication of TPLF's 27 years in power. You can recognize that they did a lot of messed up shit while in charge, and also acknowledge that they aren't the start of this war. Like, the two can be true. Just because you don't like them doesn't mean that they are the ones who caused this war. Going ahead with the elections, in my opinion, that is a legitimate thing to do. You have an unelected prime minister who declared himself a caretaker, essentially, until a new election was going to be held. And he's going, yeah, actually, no, I'm going to indefinitely delay elections. That's unacceptable. And so, in their minds, it was unacceptable for them to continue their governance, their term in Tigray without an election, and they held one. And this is the result. The entire federal military apparatus, the barbaric militias from Amhara region, the animals from the Eritrean military, basically committing genocide in Tigray because they valued democracy, they valued having elections over, kissing up to dictators in Addis Ababa or Asmara. So, it's clear Tigray was acting in self-defense. It was a preemptive strike on the Northern Command. There's evidence that shows complete encirclement, complete mobilization of federal forces and their allies to this cause to attack Tigray. So let's put an end to this narrative of the Northern Command was the beginning of the war, it was some surprise attack. No, that's a lie. That is a attempt to create a narrative that demonizes Tigray, that justifies genocide, and that cannot stand. That's unacceptable, and it is, quite frankly, the last straw for the people of Tigray. I wouldn't be surprised if an independent Tigray is the outcome of this conflict years down the road, but that is something to address later on. Right now, there needs to be an end to the fighting as soon as possible, or at the very least an accommodation of humanitarian aid to get to the most vulnerable populations. Until then, we're going to see more death, we're going to see more starvation, we're going to see more sadness. It's a sad situation for Tigray, for Ethiopia, for the world. Thank you for watching.